Oh, I don't know. I mean, could have come off maybe a couple cemetery tombstones. Maybe the phone book.
Bob Dylan was always seen as the silent legend of American music, the Nobel Prize winner that everyone wanted to work with. But at age 83, he broke that image with a shocking announcement. He shared a private list of 7 musicians he disliked the most, and the names left the whole industry stunned. These were people who worked with him, close friends, even his heroes. They said nice things about him in public, but he pushed them away in private. And when you learn why these friendships ended, you'll see why they promised never to work together again. Joni Mitchell, the artist who called Dylan a fake. The first name on Dylan's list might surprise you even more than the others, Joni Mitchell. Yes, the Canadian singer-songwriter who changed folk music forever, the woman whose voice painted emotions like colors on canvas. But her relationship with Dylan collapsed in a way that left both of them bitter for years. The trouble started in 1978 during a magazine interview where Joni was asked about male songwriters who influenced her generation. She mentioned several names, but when Dylan came up, her tone shifted. She said something that would haunt their relationship forever. Bob's just playing dress up with emotions he doesn't really feel. That wasn't a light criticism. That was questioning everything Dylan built his career on, his authenticity, his honesty, his soul. Coming from Joni Mitchell, someone whose own writing was deeply personal and raw, the words carried extra weight. She was basically saying Dylan was performing pain instead of living it. When Dylan heard about the comment, people close to him said he went quiet for hours. He didn't rage or rant. He just sat there, processing. One band member later recalled Dylan finally saying she thinks she owns truth because she cries on record. It was a sharp response, showing just how deeply her words had cut him. The situation got worse at a party in Los Angeles a few months later. Both were invited to the same gathering of musicians. Friends thought they might talk it out, maybe clear the air. Instead, when Joni walked into the room, Dylan stood up and left through another door. He didn't say goodbye to anyone. He just disappeared. Joni saw it happen, and according to witnesses, she looked hurt but not surprised. What made this feud different from the others was that both artists were too proud to ever address it publicly. They never badmouthed each other in interviews after that. They simply acted like the other didn't exist. When journalists asked about Dylan's music, he would give short, polite answers that said nothing. When Joni was asked about Dylan, she would change the subject entirely. The music world kept hoping they would collaborate someday. Their styles would have created something magical. But people who knew both of them understood it would never happen. The wound was too deep, the pride too strong, and the words too harsh to ever take back. Leonard Cohen, the poet Dylan loved, then resented forever. Leonard Cohen holds the second spot on Dylan's list, and it's the most heartbreaking one because this argument didn't begin with insults or competition. It began with respect. Dylan truly loved Cohen's work. He praised him publicly, called him the best level of songwriting, and talked about Cohen with a gentleness he rarely showed anyone. And that's exactly why what happened next felt like a betrayal Dylan couldn't get over. The turning point came quietly in the early 1970s. Cohen was being interviewed in Paris and was asked about Dylan's early writing. He smiled politely, paused to think, and said his early songs were somewhat childish compared to the poets he admired. He meant it as an academic opinion, not a mean comment, but the situation didn't matter. That single word, childish, hit Dylan like a slap. People around Dylan say he read that quote multiple times, unable to believe Cohen had said it. This wasn't a competitor or someone trying to provoke him. This was the one songwriter Dylan truly feared, because Cohen's writing reached places Dylan respected. Hearing Cohen dismiss his early work felt like hearing a teacher whisper, "You were never as talented as you believed." During an unexpected meeting in New York years later, Cohen tried making casual conversation. Dylan remained cool, distant. Cohen later told a friend, "Bob talks in puzzles." But insiders say Dylan simply didn't want to let him back in.
He couldn't trust someone who had once hurt him in a way professional critics never could. Their artistic competition only became more complicated. When Cohen released Hallelujah, Dylan praised it publicly, singing it at concerts, but never contacted him privately. When Cohen complimented Dylan's emotional honesty in songwriting, Dylan ignored it, nothing more. To everyone else, it seemed cold. To those who understood Dylan, it was intentional. The pain from that old interview had never healed.
Lou Reed, the punk writer who insulted Dylan's spirit. Lou Reed got the third position on Dylan's list the moment he spoke in 1974. He attacked Dylan's core identity, and Dylan never forgave him for it. The moment came during an interview Reed did while promoting a Velvet Underground project. The reporter asked him about Dylan's influence on songwriting. Reed didn't hesitate. He shot out a comment that still rings today. "Dylan never meant anything to me." Then he added another hit. "His lyrics are just smoke and mirrors." People who heard the complete interview said Reed wasn't kidding, wasn't envious, wasn't even mad. He said it with the same flat, cool voice he used when discussing equipment and guitar sounds. And that's precisely what made the words hurt. It wasn't personal for Reed, but it became very personal for Dylan. When the comments got back to Dylan, he didn't fight back. He didn't respond publicly. What he did was colder. According to someone who worked on his 1970s tours, Dylan nodded once and said, "Let him speak. Silence will be my answer." And that silence became their fight. Dylan removed Reed from his life. No public mentions, no acknowledgement at all. Musicians who tried to mention Reed in conversations said Dylan would switch topics immediately, like brushing away cigarette ash. The tension quietly grew stronger a decade later. In the early 1990s, during a Rolling Stone interview, a reporter casually brought up Lou Reed. Dylan looked up, smiled slightly, and asked, "Who?" It wasn't a joke. It was complete rejection, the kind musicians fear more than an insult. Reed heard about it later and reportedly rolled his eyes, saying, "Of course he said that." But it troubled him more than he showed. And here's the surprising part almost no fans know. Reed once told a friend, "Dylan was too insecure to handle my honesty." Dylan heard that comment too. After that, the door was shut permanently.
Joan Baez, the folk singer who lost Dylan's trust. What exactly turned Bob Dylan and Joan Baez from being the strongest pair in folk music to almost never talking for decades? That's the question fans still ask quietly. Because the split wasn't just about music, it was personal, very personal. Their argument began with a moment Joan thought was innocent. During the wild mid-1960s, when Dylan was changing his style, Joan publicly said he was moving away from the people who needed him. To everyone else, it sounded like a comment about his music. To Dylan, it felt like an attack from someone who understood his private worries better than anyone. The real break happened during the 1965 UK tour. Joan expected to perform with Dylan on stage, like they had many times before. But when she showed up, everything had changed. Dylan's team wouldn't give her a performance slot. Dylan himself wouldn't agree to sing together. According to one crew worker, Joan approached him in a hallway and asked, "Are you really pushing me out?" Dylan reportedly answered coldly, "This isn't your show." That wasn't just saying no, it was embarrassing her. A few nights later, Joan understood Dylan wasn't just going in a new artistic direction. He was leaving her behind. She later said, "He didn't owe me anything except the truth." Dylan never said sorry, never gave an explanation, and that hurt her more than any news story. But that wasn't where it ended. Joan made her pain public. She talked in interviews about Dylan losing his purpose, about him giving up on activism. She didn't criticize his talent, she criticized his character. and that was the one thing Dylan protected more strongly than his fame. People around Dylan said he felt revealed, almost stabbed in the back, that the person who knew his weaknesses had used them as weapons. He never shouted about it. He simply removed any chance of working with her again. People who suggested they reunite were immediately told no. Dylan later said, "She used my fears to embarrass me." Their silence continued for over 40 years. Even their reunion at the 1975 Rolling Thunder Revue didn't fix the damage. It only made the tension obvious. Cameras showed them smiling but not relating, performing together but not trusting.
Eric Clapton, the guitar star who tried to replace Dylan. The fifth name on Dylan's list is a man he once praised, Eric Clapton. And the strange part is this: Dylan didn't dislike him at first. The bad feelings came quickly, suddenly from one moment he couldn't forget. People who knew both musicians still mention the night it occurred. It was late 1978, in a small rehearsal space in West Hollywood. A few musicians were sitting around after a practice session. Clapton was comfortable, relaxed after a long day of playing, speaking louder than normal, and he said something that shocked everyone in the room. "Dylan's losing his edge. Someone needs to take over soon." The people there went silent. One of them later said Clapton didn't sound angry. He said it like he was stating a simple truth, and that made it worse. And naturally, that comment reached Dylan within one day, because in the music business, secrets don't last. When Dylan found out, he didn't get angry. He didn't even seem surprised. He just nodded slowly. And according to a bass player who was there, he said something just once. Interesting how people act when they think they're getting ahead. That comment wasn't about Clapton's skill. It was about his desire for success. The damage was instant. A recording session Dylan and Clapton were supposed to try out vanished from the schedule. Phone calls weren't returned. Messages got no response. Clapton tried asking people what happened, and finally one sound engineer told him directly, "Whatever you said the other night, Bob found out." Clapton tried to make things right once at a 1981 music festival. He walked toward Dylan backstage, hand slightly up, ready to talk. Dylan spotted him. His jaw tightened. He turned around and walked away. Clapton looked truly shocked, like he just understood this wasn't a simple mistake. It was forever.
Paul McCartney, the Beatles Dylan couldn't forgive. At the final spot on Dylan's list, in the position no one expected, is Paul McCartney. Yes, that Paul McCartney, the beloved Beatle, the person everyone thought Dylan respected completely. But that wasn't true, and when you discover what happened, his feelings suddenly make sense. The problem started in 1987, long before public arguments were common news. McCartney was doing a normal interview, discussing melodies, pop music style, and how music was changing. Then the interviewer casually mentioned Dylan's recent songs, the darker, more unusual tracks Dylan had been creating. Paul laughed a little, shrugged his shoulders, and said, "Bob isn't making songs people can remember anymore." It sounded gentle, almost like a joke, but Dylan didn't see it as a joke. It felt like an attack. People don't remember that Dylan, in the mid-1980s, wasn't confident. He was weak, tired, and recovering from 10 years of personal struggles. He was recreating himself. And when one of the world's most important musicians suggested his new music wasn't memorable, Dylan felt embarrassed. A close friend later remembered Dylan saying quietly, "He wanted to be like Lennon. He never got me." It wasn't showing off. It was Dylan setting a limit. The result happened without drama. Plans for a small tour together suddenly disappeared. Private meetings got canceled. McCartney didn't know why. Dylan never talked to him about it, but people on the inside knew exactly what caused the distance. Fans kept wishing they would make up, but those who knew Dylan say it never happened. Lennon was the Beatle Dylan truly admired. He was sharp, skeptical, and unpredictable.
Paul was the opposite, smooth, cautious, loved by everyone, naturally charming. To Dylan, that charm seemed fake.
What these feuds really tell us about Bob Dylan. Examining all these broken relationships, a pattern emerges. Dylan wasn't just a sensitive artist who couldn't handle criticism. He was someone who valued loyalty and honesty above everything else. Each person on his list didn't just criticize his music, they questioned his character, his authenticity, or his worth during moments when he was already struggling. These weren't arguments about musical styles or creative differences, they were personal betrayals in Dylan's eyes. When Paul McCartney suggested his songs weren't memorable, it hit Dylan during a vulnerable time. When Eric Clapton implied Dylan was losing relevance, it challenged his position in music history. When Joan Baez made their private doubts public, it broke a trust that could never be repaired. When Lou Reed dismissed his entire artistic contribution, it denied Dylan's impact on music. When Leonard Cohen called his early work childish, it undermined his foundation. And when Joni Mitchell questioned his emotional authenticity, it attacked the core of what he believed about himself. Understanding these feuds helps us understand Dylan himself. He was an artist who felt everything deeply, even if he didn't always show it. He remembered every slight, every dismissal, every moment of disrespect. And once someone crossed that line, there was no going back. No apology would work, no explanation would matter. The relationship was simply over. This might seem harsh or unforgiving to some people, but it also shows an artist who knew his worth and refused to surround himself with people who didn't respect him. In a music industry full of fake friendships and temporary alliances, Dylan chose authenticity. He would rather be alone than be around people who hurt him or question his value. These feuds also reveal something about fame and relationships. When you reach Dylan's level of success, every word matters. Every comment gets analyzed. Every slight becomes permanent. The people on his list probably never imagined their casual remarks or honest opinions would end their relationships with one of music's greatest legends. But that's exactly what happened. Now I want to hear from you. Which name on Dylan's hate list shocked you the most? Was it Paul McCartney, the beloved Beatle everyone assumed Dylan admired? Or maybe Eric Clapton, the guitar legend who tried to claim Dylan's throne? Perhaps Joan Baez surprised you, since they created so much beautiful music together. Or was it Lou Reed, Leonard Cohen, or Joni Mitchell, artists whose work we all respect today? More importantly, which of these feuds do you think should have been resolved? Should Dylan have forgiven Paul McCartney's comment about forgettable songs? Should Eric Clapton have gotten a second chance? Did Joan Baez deserve an explanation instead of silence? Could Lou Reed and Dylan have found common ground? Should Leonard Cohen's academic criticism have been overlooked? And what about Joni Mitchell? Was her comment about Dylan being fake too harsh ever to move past? Think about how these broken relationships changed music history. Imagine the albums that never got made. Picture the collaborations that could have happened. Consider the songs we never heard because these artists refused to work together. Every feud on this list represents lost potential, missed opportunities, and music that will never exist. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Tell me which feud affected you the most. Explain which artist you think was right and which one should have apologized. And let me know if you've learned anything new about Bob Dylan from this story that changed how you see him as an artist and as a person. If this video opened your eyes to the hidden drama behind music's biggest legends, make sure you hit that like button right now. Your likes tell me you want more untold stories, more shocking revelations, and more deep dives into the personal lives of the artists who created the soundtrack to our lives. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel so you never miss another explosive story.
We're uncovering secrets that have been buried for decades, revealing truths that change how we understand music history, and sharing stories that even the biggest fans don't know. And most importantly, hit that notification bell. Turn on all notifications so you're the first to know when we drop our next video. Because trust me, the stories we have coming up are even more unbelievable than this one. We're talking about feuds, secrets, betrayals, and revelations that will completely change how you think about your favorite musicians. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video where we continue exploring the untold stories behind music's greatest legends.